Mark Carney, who used to be the governor of the Bank of England, now Prime Minister of Canada, and everyone thinks he might win and be reconfirmed as Prime Minister of Canada on the elections there on April the 28th. And he's made his position clear. He wants a really kind of deep trade deal with the European Union, I mean, de facto membership of the customs union in the single market. And the British government would like to kind of come in on the coattails of that and then extend the invitation to other countries. I mean, I think Australians would be keen to join in. So would New Zealand. You might even find one or two countries in the other countries in the British Commonwealth need to join in, and the Japanese too. So you could see kind of the emergence of a kind of rules-based kind of trading area that actually isn't globalization, but is certainly keeping the corridors of trade open. And I don't think the Americans would like that at all. I think the Republican Party could split over it.
Of course, it's important to say that whilst this conversation is happening today, the government is currently seeking trade deals with India and Australia and continuing to work closely with the European Union. So what exactly does this globalization has failed mean? And as Starmer looks to boost growth in the UK, what are the options on the table? Well, joining us now with his thoughts is Will Hutton, political economist and columnist and president of the Academy of Social Sciences. Will, welcome to the show. Thanks for giving us your time.
Well, thank you for the invitation.
What do you make of that statement, and how surprising is it to hear it coming out of the lips of a Labour Prime Minister?
Well, I think there's a lot of globalization kind of leading up to the financial crisis style is plainly kind of gone. But the advantages of having an open trading system, a rules-based trading system, are there for all to see. I mean, trade has been the handmaid of economic growth since the beginning of time, and it's still true today. And my belief is that actually, yes, the government is saying that kind of globalization, which very much benefited America, by the way, is kind of the curtain's come down on it, but the curtain has not come down on trying to retain a rules-based trading system. I mean, the nations of the world have got to be able to buy and sell. The supply chains between them have got to remain open. I mean, we need the opportunity of selling our cars, our services to other countries like they need to sell to us. And if that stops or gets seriously kind of frozen, which is maybe the most likely outcome, that's really going to hurt everything. And so I think one has to kind of choose one's words with extreme care. The kind of turbocharged, kind of finance-driven investment banks opening up everywhere, all of that has plainly gone down the tubes. But what I know actually is that Macron, Merz in Germany, Starmer, Mark Carney, the Australians, and even the Japanese are in urgent conversations about how to kind of rescue something from the wreckage and keep their markets open. So I think it's the kind of fight's on, and it's going to be very intriguing. And indeed, just to say this, I mean, Mark Carney, who used to be the governor of the Bank of England, now Prime Minister of Canada, and everyone thinks he might win and be reconfirmed as Prime Minister of Canada on the elections there on April the 28th. And he's made his position clear. He wants a really kind of deep trade deal with the European Union, I mean, de facto membership of the customs union in the single market. And the British government would like to kind of come in on the coattails of that and then extend the invitation to other countries. I mean, I think Australians would be keen to join in. So would New Zealand. You might even find one or two countries in the other countries in the British Commonwealth need to join in, and the Japanese too. So you could see kind of the emergence of a kind of rules-based kind of trading area that actually isn't globalization, but is certainly keeping the corridors of trade open. And I don't think the Americans would like that at all. I think the Republican Party could split over it. They would say, why have we set this up? And it could be very difficult too at home here for Brexiters like Nigel Farage. I mean, are you against Nigel? kind of join the Canadians and the Australians and the Nigerians and the Indians in a trade association with the European Union, form a trade bloc to keep trade going? Are you against that? Do you want to make common cause with Trump's America? I think the politics of this could get as interesting as the economics.
Well, do you think that that is the biggest decision this government now has to face? There's been a lot of calls of saying, well, look, actually, the UK should use the advantage, as some see it, of being outside the EU to be nimble and to try and negotiate a better tariffs deal with the US to go after that all elusive and nebulous US-UK trade deal. Is that going to be the tough choice that Keir Starmer and his government have to make? Is it getting closer to the US or getting closer to the EU, as you described it?
There's no choice. I mean, I think it's very clear. The algebra behind those tariffs made it clear that the way President Trump and his kind of troop of sycophants, frankly, in the White House think. I mean, for Trump, trade is not about, there's no possibility that there's win-win outcomes in trade. Economists, and I lean to the left, you'll talk to other people who lean to the right, but one thing unites all economists is that that trade is growth inducing. It's just, it's economics 101. That's not believed by Donald Trump. Donald Trump thinks that he's an old-fashioned mercantilist. He believes that, you trade to get lots of gold bullion. This is what we thought before kind of modern times. And he thinks that if the only way a country gets a trade surplus is if it's bullied someone into submission, that if a country runs a trade surplus with the United States, it must have racketeered, bullied, plundered, pillaged. It's not because American consumers find it advantageous to buy the goods from that country and advantageous for the Americans to sell goods and services back to the rest of the world. He doesn't think like that. So any deal with America on the table is going to be one which is going to be on his terms. And he's going to want to trumpet it as, look, my supporters, UK has given us this deal. We're going to get all our chlorinated chicken into the United Kingdom. We're going to have no tax on our digital companies trading there. They're going to accept our rules and regulations. They've even conceding that they may abandon having value-added tax. I mean, to have a deal like that is no deal at all. And actually, I think it would go down terribly here in the UK. And I think it could split the Labour Party, actually. I mean, Bridget Phillipson has already said that there's no way that there's going to be online safety is going to be compromised by a trade deal. And that's just what the Americans are pushing for. So I just don't think the choice, as you've described, kind of there.
Yeah, and Darren Jones this morning has been categorical where it comes to things like chlorinated chicken, there's a red line for the UK government, and we know that US trade deal is heavily going to be based on agriculture, on food goods and pharmaceuticals for the NHS. So it makes that deal look very tricky.
You can't get a trade deal through Congress, given the geography of America. It has to have a 2/3 majority in both the Senate and the House. And to do that requires all those congressmen and women from the Midwest to vote for it. And they simply won't vote for it unless there's an advantageous deal on agriculture. So, it's not, we have to do deals with Canada. We have to do deals with the European Union. And it's much better for that to be comprehensive rather than a series of side deals.
Sure. Well, just before we go, I wanted to get your thoughts. We were debating earlier whether the UK needs to start thinking seriously of having closer ties with China. You haven't mentioned China in this sort of trade pact that is going to get closer to the EU. What are your thoughts? Do we need to get closer to China since those tariff announcements from the White House?
I do, but I have to tread carefully. That's why I'm so keen on the notion. Canada is both a member of the Commonwealth and wants to associate with the European Union. And that is a kind of bridgehead for Britain to work with Canada to open that possibility up. And then, having done that, to make the same kind of terms available to other Commonwealth countries. Australia and New Zealand will bite our hand off to do it. I have no doubt. And I suspect South Africa would as well. And then India might want to have a kind of special deal. And Japan and South Korea would also. And once you've got that in place, you then start talking to China. You've got to do something comprehensive that the kind of, and that you're then talking, if those countries I've just mentioned got their act together, the Commonwealth, Japan, and the European Union, you are talking about, close to, certainly more than 40%, maybe even close to 45% of world GDP. And then you turn to China and say, this is what we're doing. We're going to be, we don't want you dumping products on us. We're going to have special safeguards. But if you want to play ball with this new trade order we're creating, you're welcome. I would also say the same to the United States, by the way. They'll have to drop all their wretched tariffs. So you see where I'm going with this? I mean, I think, and I happen to know that actually Mark Carney and Keir Starmer and Macron and Friedrich Merz are all thinking in these terms.
Okay.
So this might not be so stupid as you think.
I don't think it sounds stupid at all. Will, thank you so much for giving us all this time. Really fascinated to speak to you. Will Hutton there, political economist, columnist and president of the Academy of Social Sciences.